Created by an Italian priest in the mid-1960s, the chronovisor would have been a miracle of technology and an immense leap forward in the studies of time travel. Father Pellegrino Maria used his invention to look back at any point in history and watch any event he so pleased. He claimed that the chronovisor could latch on to the remnant vibrations of any one historical event, and that he tailored his invention to allow him to see rough images of whatever had happened. He personally used the chronovisor to watch the death of Jesus Christ. However, years later on his deathbed, he admitted that he could never get the chronovisor to work properly in viewing Christ's crucifixion because he was never able to find the vibrations from that event. He did attest that the chronovisor allowed him looks at other historical events, such as the French Revolution and the death of Julius Caesar. While there is obvious skepticism at what Father Maria claims to have seen, some believe that the invention was stolen away by the Vatican, as it mysteriously disappeared just days after the man's death. At the center of multiple conspiracy theories is master inventor Stanley Meyer, whose brilliant invention of the water-powered dune buggy caused a major stir in the international oil industry. Once an employee of NASA, Meyer retired and began his own inventive work with the hopes of changing the world's dependency on oil, as that market seemed to control much of how the world worked. His creation of the water-powered dune buggy stunned the car market, as his vehicle was half the size of an ordinary car, yet was capable of getting up to 99 miles per gallon. This invention would have destroyed the oil industry completely, as a dependence upon any material needed to fuel cars would have drastically diminished. But before the dune buggy could make it to the production line, Stanley Meyer suffered a brain aneurysm and died instantly. Many believe that he was actually poisoned, and his partners believe enough of the conspiracy theory to hide the car from the world, not allowing his blueprints or schematics to fall into the hands of the oil companies. Created by the Nazis in World War II, the device known as the magnetofunk served one deadly purpose: to alter the course of Allied planes by naturally changing the direction of their compasses in flight. The magnetofunk was held at Point 103, a popular Nazi base that the Americans soon discovered the location of. The magnetofunk sent up confusing magnetic vibrations to enemy planes and subtly changed their course, which explains why no Allied force was ever capable of finding Point 103. And if they had, the war would have ended much earlier. So they wouldn't confuse their own planes, the Nazis invented a device known as the Himmelkompass, which used the sun as a stagnant point rather than the magnetism of the Earth. Both of these devices were ordered destroyed by Hitler before the end of the war, and they were essentially lost to history. And yes, there are rumors that the legendary magnetofunk also inspired the name and powers of the great X-Men villain Magneto. Dr. Wilhelm Reich was a master inventor, if not a little unorthodox. His claim to fame was the wondrous invention named the Cloudbuster, which reportedly broke up cloud vapors and turned them into rain, giving Reich what was considered to be the first weather-altering machine in history. Reich gave a public display of his machine's abilities only once, and the results were conclusive. On a day in which there was no rain scheduled, Reich pointed his machine at a cloud formation and it scattered, with rain falling in its absence. Naturally, the US government stepped in, saying the weapon was unlawful, and Reich was forced to turn it over. He would go on to attempt other inventions, including a small walk-in box that would cure the common cold of anyone who stepped inside. That invention, however, was unapproved by the FDA, and its repeated use caused the government to step in once again. Only this time it ended with a lengthy jail sentence for Reich, and he died in prison. The 1960s battle of tobacco companies with health-conscious agencies is one that has been widely reported, and even served as the plot of the first episode of the popular television show Mad Men. What wasn't so reported was that one small company actually invented what was considered a much safer version of the cigarette. The Liggett & Myers company invented the XA, which removed the majority of the deadly carcinogens in regular cigarettes by a staggering 87%. But when they tried to bring their product to market, they were stopped and nearly sued by every single major tobacco company in the world. The problem with the XA is that other tobacco companies were not ready to admit that their products were in fact harmful. And if the XA was promoted as being the safe choice, it would imply that all other cigarettes were not safe and would effectively run them out of business. Overwhelmed by the sheer size and staying power of the other tobacco companies, Liggett & Myers closed down operation on the XA, and the safe cigarettes stayed away for years until the famed Battle of the Poison finally died down. While there isn't a title for the invention used in the creation of the Coral Castle, or an invention at all really, the mystery of Edward Lean Skalnin's coral statues is one that calls for amazing feats of technological advancement and yet has never been solved. After being abandoned by his fiancée, Leet-Skalnin traveled to Florida, where he developed tuberculosis. He was reportedly able to beat the disease with the help of magnetic healing, but never went on to express just what that entailed. Over the next nearly 30 years, Leet-Skalnin committed to creating a castle on his own property using coral statues, but used no modern technology or moving equipment to push them from place to place. Instead, he claimed to use some sort of magnetic tool of his own devising to put the coral statues where he wanted them. Professionals were skeptical, believing that the statues were likely very easy to carry by hand, but soon later discovered that every large rock on his property was nearly 3 tons or more. No one is sure how the man was capable of making such an incredible sight, and you can even visit the Coral Castle today and see the marvel of magnetism that Leet-Skalnin left behind. Before flamethrowers were readily available to the public, the Byzantine Empire invented some tools simply known as the Greek fire, which allowed them to create, contain, and control the spread of fire in a steady stream. This weapon, depicted in paintings of ancient warfare, was often used against enemy ships, as their wooden exteriors would be no match for the concentrated flames sent their way. Historians still wonder at the marvel that is the Greek fire, and have continually come up short for answers at how such a complex machine could be created so simply. While we have flamethrowers today that use concentrated doses of gas, we have to hand it to the Byzantine Empire that they were definitely ahead of their time.